U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran is taking too long to negotiate a deal over the Middle East conflict and will have to, I quote, pay the price. Those comments coming after Tehran said it is reassessing diplomatic engagement with Washington following a fresh exchange of strikes between the two sides across the Gulf. Iran says it targeted American military bases in Jordan, Bahrain, and Kuwait. Tehran warning the U.S. allies that they have a responsibility to prevent their territory from being used to wage war. Jordan's military says it shot down 5 Iranian missiles, while Bahrain said it intercepted a number of aerial attacks. The escalation in hostilities comes after U.S. forces struck Iranian assets south of the country. Washington has described the move as a proportional response in retaliation to the downing of an American helicopter near the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says its armed forces will leave no attack or threat unanswered. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also emphasized Tehran's inherent right to self-defense, blaming Washington for derailing efforts to end the war. And for more, we're joined by Kate Fisher, reporting for CNA live from Washington, D.C., and Blake Sifton, standing by in Tel Aviv. Now, Kate, let's start with you. What do we know about the latest U.S. strikes on Iran, and how are they being justified as a response to the downing of that U.S. helicopter?
Yeah, that's right. CENTCOM from the US military is saying they are self-defensive in nature and a proportionate response to the downing of that helicopter. They targeted things like Iranian radar sites, its infrastructure, and this is what the US says is a proportional response to what they say was the Iranian downing of their US helicopter. However, we've just had in the last few minutes Donald Trump, the president, taking to his Truth Social platform with much stronger language, saying that threatening that the Iranians will pay the price for taking too long to negotiate, calling them the bully of the Middle East, saying they will be dead. They've taken too long to negotiate a deal that would have been great for them, and now they will have to pay the price with lots of exclamation marks. And that is, kind of a much stronger rhetoric than we heard from, say, yesterday from Donald Trump, and follows these US strikes on Iranian targets. But we should also counter that with the fact that Donald Trump has made repeated threats on Iran throughout this military campaign. And since this fragile ceasefire has taken shape, although you could argue if it's still a ceasefire given the retaliatory strikes we've had over the last 24 hours, but he hasn't followed through on these excessive threats so far. But then this is just the latest one, and we don't know, as ever, whether he's actually going to do it. Until this point, it's really seen that he is really keen to find a diplomatic breakthrough to end this conflict rather than re-escalating the aggression. But this is a very strongly worded post on his social media site. So it's just very hard to know whether he's intending to follow through with this rhetoric or whether it is another kind of empty threat aimed at getting the Iranians to do what he wants them to do.
Kate, thank you for that update. Now, Blake, over to you. Let's get a wider look at the conflict. How serious is the security situation in the Gulf right now?
Well, these exchanges of fire between Iran and the U.S., despite the ceasefire, very surprisingly, are becoming commonplace, happening several times per week over the last few weeks. But they are becoming more dangerous and more serious. In the past, Iran has claimed to have brought down American drones. But this is the first time that a manned U.S. aircraft was brought down by Iran since the ceasefire came into effect in April. According to reports, the crew of that Apache helicopter were lucky to have survived. So this situation could easily have escalated and spiraled out of control. Iran is also widening the scope of the U.S. bases in the region that it is targeting. Today, it targeted Jordan for the first time since the ceasefire came into effect, firing 5 missiles. The IRGC say targeted F-35 fighter jet hangars. They also, of course, targeted the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain as well as Kuwait. Kuwait has come under fire regularly over the last few weeks. They are uniquely vulnerable because of their proximity to Iraq, where, of course, Iranian proxies are based. Now, Iran has also warned their Gulf neighbors that they have a moral and legal responsibility to prevent attacks by the United States originating from their territory. And they have said that in the future, they'll respond to what they call American aggression with more severe responses. Now, as well today, there was another incident off the coast of Yemen that could be very important. A gunman, we understand, according to reports, attacked a container ship. Details there are unclear, but the Houthi militia based in Yemen joined the conflict on behalf of Iran on Monday, firing 2 missiles at Israel as well as 1 drone and threatening to disrupt maritime traffic through the Red Sea and to the Suez Canal.
Now, Iran's foreign minister has reportedly been holding discussions with his counterparts in Saudi Arabia and Turkey. What is he hoping to achieve through these talks?
Well, that's right. We understand that Iran's foreign minister earlier today held separate phone conversations with his counterparts from Saudi Arabia and Turkey. According to Iranian state media, he used the occasion to criticize those American attacks and to assert Iran's right to defend themselves. Regional powers like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia, have been urging negotiations, but there's no indication at this stage that phone conversations like that will help advance that process. Today, we heard from Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson. He said that the negotiations with the U.S. are suffering because of what he called contradictory messages and shifting positions coming out of D.C., as well as what he called violations of the ceasefire by the United States. And he said that in light of these attacks today, that Iran would be reviewing their negotiations with the U.S. And he said that a minimal environment in which diplomacy can function is necessary for talks to advance. He also pointed to Israeli actions in Lebanon, which he said violate the ceasefire and jeopardize a wider deal between Iran and the United States. And today, the Israeli military carried out further airstrikes across southern Lebanon, killing at least 6 people in a village outside the city of Tyre.
Blake, Kate, thank you so much for bringing us the latest. That was Kate Fisher in Washington, D.C., and Blake Sifton in Tel Aviv.